Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Keller, and we've got Tom Olson back in Rhode Island. He's been there for like a month now because we've had recorded like 4 or 5 podcasts with Tom in Rhode Island. He's not really in Rhode Island. These are not live, so he's so dedicated that we're just recording a bunch of these while he's in Rhode Island. And so we got Brandon McCurdy on the podcast today. Brandon, what is going on, my friend?
Not much. Just enjoying a scenic day here in the great Midwest.
That's a beautiful couch that you're sitting on, by the way. I love the design.
Thank you so much. I know it's not mine. It's not mine.
Yeah. Okay. It's the hotels, right?
It's the hotel.
It's hotel art. Right. So
it's hotel art.
So Brandon, just a few things about Brandon. So Brandon's out of Frankfort, Illinois, which is not too far from us. I believe it's about an hour and a half from Gary, Indiana, from where we're at. And then he's a pastor at Mokina Baptist Church, which I enjoy your little podcasts that you do, the videos that you post. Those are awesome, by the way. I love those.
Thank you very much.
So you guys go check those out if you're interested there. He's also the owner of Brand Design. They do branding, Facebook advertising, all social media advertising, I believe podcast production, all kinds of stuff that you guys...
All sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of media stuff that you guys do, which we're going to talk about in the podcast today and the importance of that. So you guys can go check him out. We're going to tag his Facebook and then put his website down below once we ask him about the contact information. He's also the co-owner. We established it's a co-owner of the Talking Shirt with his wife. And I'm going to have him chat about that a little bit because it's a very interesting concept. And me and Tom have actually been batting around back and forth to have Brandon possibly produce some of the Good Success shirts with the Talking Shirt. And then he's got a store, which is a super cool store. I've been there before. It's called the Storehouse. It's a furniture store with a bunch of antique items. That is really cool environment. I love it to death. I'm going to come back at some point and purchase some stuff. Just moved into a house, so I'm going to be filling my house with some of that stuff. So
we'll hook you up.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to come back around to Brandon, and we're going to have him talk about some of this stuff here in just a second. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all those platforms. So just go to the platform, look for Good Success, and subscribe to us. Leave us a review if you're able to. We would love that and appreciate it. And then we've got the Active Turnkey book, The Best Way to Buy Rentals. Again, Tom is not here. I'm enjoying this because he can't take this out of my hand. So the Active Turnkey book, Best Way to Buy Rentals. We're giving this away for free. Tom Olson himself is paying for it. He wrote the book, so he's going to pay for it. And then all you guys got to do is cover shipping costs. So that's all we're asking you to do. A lot of value in there. We actually have had a few people get back to us and tell us how awesome the book is. So that's good to hear. Talks about some of the 5 wealth drivers. The best way to buy rentals is the topic there. And then financial freedom through real estate and that kind of stuff. So that's Tom giving information away. You can go pick your book up at goodsuccess.com/ATK book. That's ATK as an active turnkey. And again, it's absolutely free. Take advantage of it. All you got to do is cover shipping costs and we'll ship that out to you right away. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up November 8, 9, and 10. You guys can check that out at goodsuccess.com/mastermind to learn more about the culture that we've created. The mastermind group is growing exponentially. We have a lot of new attendees that are going to be coming to this event. We're very excited about it. It's going to be in sunny Miami, Florida, because nobody wants to be in Northwest Indiana in November. So that's why we're doing it there. Tom, do you want to talk about that at all, the mastermind or anything?
Christmas lights at Macy's in downtown Chicago are just absolutely amazing in November. So I wouldn't say nobody wants to be in November.
Weather-wise.
Wants to be in Chicago in November. Now, maybe January. Okay, I can agree with you there. But
there you go.
It is beautiful in Chicago, especially late November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
late
yes.
November, yeah. Well, I just had Dewey on the podcast. Actually, we did a really quick interview because he came into the office. So we did like a 20-minute. And I'm like, hey, Dewey, how does it feel outside? And right now it's about 55, 60. He's like, it's cold. So he's from Winter Haven. So he's from Winter Haven, Florida. So I don't understand it, but hey, it is what it is. But anyway, you guys can check out the mastermind.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Right, come on. What are these Floridians thinking? But you guys can check out the mastermind, goodsuccess.com/mastermind to learn more about that. And then we also have early bird tickets going on for the Community Go Giver event. You guys can pick those up, save a couple $100. The event last year was absolutely fantastic. This year, it's going to be June 26, 27, 28, right here on office. Tom's got an awesome speaking lineup that he's been working on. I know that you just acquired Sonia Booker, I believe, to speak at the event, so that's exciting. Do you want to talk any further about the event?
Well, sure. The one thing I want to just get across about this event is why I want to do it. So why do I want to have a Community Go Giver event? It's because I want to try to explain what we're doing and how we are affecting our community positively. So why do I want to do that? I want to do that so I can encourage others to go back and be community go-givers in their own community, or maybe even jump on board and help us in Gary, Indiana, flipping the entire city of Gary, Indiana. Why do I want to do that? Well, I want to enroll them. I want to enroll people from around the country and even around the world at some point to be community go-givers and think of themselves as a community go-giver. Well, why do I want to do that? I want to actually make a difference in our community in Gary, Indiana, but also communities all across the world. And I want to be known as a community go-giver and somebody who encourages other people to do good works and to go out there and help the community. So that's really why we're doing it. And if you want to be if that's who you are, if you want to make a difference in your community, if you want to make a difference in the world and in people's lives, I think that this would be a great place to be able to connect with other like-minded people, but also give yourself ideas on how you can be a community go-giver. And I love it because we don't just focus on all the money. You go to all these other conferences and that's all they want to focus on is how much money you make or how many deals you do. That's not really what I think life is all about, and our business shouldn't be about that as well. It ought to be about the lives that we're changing and the communities that we're serving.
Absolutely. So you guys, some great information there. That's the vision of the Community Go-Giver event. It was a fantastic event last year. Again, that is June 26, 27, 28. You can go to communitygogiver.com to sign up. Save a couple $100 with the early bird pricing. So without further ado, we've talked about our stuff. Brandon, let's go ahead and get into this interview. We got a lot of great information. So Brandon has worked with real estate investors, I believe, with branding, with media, content creation, that kind of stuff. He's not specifically niched into real estate, but I think it was still valuable to get him on here. It's always great getting other businesses and business owners on the podcast that we can have to get some information from. And this is one thing that is very important, is definitely branding and media and how businesses can utilize that. So before we get into it, do a brief introduction of yourself. So let's talk about some of the stuff that we talked about earlier and what you do and all that. So introduction to yourself, who you are, what you do, how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, so I moved to Mokina, Illinois, 6 years ago, and I took a church with 2 people in it, and so I was unanimously voted in as the pastor of a church of 2. So that was exciting. No, there was 2 older ladies. Funny story
people.
though.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 other people. Yeah, and one of them was homesick, and so she had to write in her vote, and so I was unanimously voted in by a write-in vote. But obviously, with that being the case, the salary for said church wasn't up to the community standard, and it is Illinois, so half of it's taxes anyway. Yeah. But so when getting in there and so forth, obviously we had to get a little creative, and I really do think that's the way God set things up for me. It was to kind of ride between pastoring that church and then also getting into marketing and advertising and so forth. And so I had gotten into graphic design, grown in that a lot, really kind of took off for me. And we started doing that and helped pay for the bills. And then from there, my wife actually came to me one day and she goes, "I want to make a t-shirt and sell it on the internet." I'm like, "I don't think it's going to work. You're welcome to try it, whatever you want to do." And so I designed her a t-shirt. I got somebody to buy some shirts from us. We bought a press, and we're in our little apartment pressing shirts, and she put it on the internet, and she sold like 1,300 shirts in 2 hours. Wow. And so that kind of pointed the direction for us to where we needed to go with that. Mm-hmm. And from there, the genesis of it was she had gone to a store, and we have 2 little girls, to buy shirts for them, and it was always I'm a drama queen, or I want to do this or that, the other thing. And it was all these just negative thoughts. And she said, that's obviously not the message I want my girls telling people. And so she started to, coming up with statements, and we started designing things that are all positive message or all faith-based. And we really struck a chord with people and stuck them online, and it just blew up. And so she sells all in Zulily and all over the internet now. And we have a store there in Frankfurt where folks get shirts and stuff. So that's the talking shirt. And then we're always trying to just find a way, like a lot of what Tom's vision is how to get connected with our community and how can we get involved. And we've really found a niche in business with that, of going and working with other businesses and partnering with other businesses and building something of a relationship with folks, to where then, when they go through difficult seasons of life, they know us from a business perspective, but then we're also able to turn around and help them and be an encouragement to them in other ways. So it all kind of fits together like a puzzle. It's not as clean of a puzzle as some other people have, but I really do think it's where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing.
So Brandon is busy. Is that a safe thing to say?
I stay busy enough.
Yeah.
I stay busy enough.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. Great stuff.
I think it's interesting that you said that because, a lot of people out there say your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. So like you kind of talked about that, but really I always add on to that. Your network is not only your net worth, it's also your survival plan. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what you illustrated there with what you've experienced as well. And I can tell you, even if you go back to, if you talk about real estate, for instance, the people that had a really good network in 2008, or let's just say they had a lot of different things going on, they figured out how to weather it. And normally when we're going through something like that, I don't care if it's a church or whatever it is, the more of that network of those people that are willing to help you, that's what's going to help get you through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've definitely found that just the opportunities, how they overlap so well. Like, a person you never expected to, enter into one part of your life or enter into one part of your business, how, they were put there for a certain time and how those things all end up working together and accomplishing the greater purpose for sure.
Awesome. Good stuff. So obviously Brandon is involved heavily with his community, with the church, with the store that he's got, with even the online community. I love the fact, I honestly didn't know that about why you guys started the Talking Shirt. That's a really interesting thought because yes, I mean, I grew up with a sister and like all the shirts had like negative connotations of like, right. I'm lazy or I'm bored. I want to, watch Netflix all day or whatever, like that kind of stuff. So I love the thought. I love the idea of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, anything that he mentioned there, we're going to actually have those linked in the description, the websites and all that. We'll ask him about contact info after we are done with the interview. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing. We got some really good questions. We got limited time for the questions. There's a lot that we could talk about with media, with marketing, with all the stuff that you are knowledgeable in. But we're going to keep it kind of high level because a lot of times business owners don't understand the full depth of marketing, the full depth of media. So first question is, why is media so important to business? I know that for us, it's huge. Like we push out a lot of content for Good Success and it makes us very well known. It connects us with our communities. It makes people familiar with us. We've even had mastermind leads come in and are like, yeah, we checked out the podcast and then we heard that you guys had a mastermind, so we're interested in it and all that good stuff. So why is media so important to businesses? It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're in real estate, if you're in, furniture business, Talking Shirt, right. Whatever.
Sure. I always say it this way. Marketing is a promise, right? So when I market to somebody or I tell them about my business or something, it's me making a promise. And then when you come and you do business with me, then I either fulfill the promise and I come through on it or I don't. And to me, media is the tool whereby I publish the promise. I say to people, here's who I am, here's what I'm about, here's what I have to offer you. And I'm gonna promise that to you, or I'm gonna tell you that that's what I can do for you. And if we don't publish that, if we don't get that out there, then what are we really in it for? I mean, we're in it to make commitments to people and to show people what we have that can better their life or can help them in a certain circumstance or get them through a difficult season of life or whatever it is that we're trying to do. And so to me, media is just simply taking the promise that I have and sending it out to the world and saying, here it is. If I'm not willing to be a good steward of getting that promise out to people and really helping them see what I can help them with, then I'm really limiting myself. So for businesses to ignore it is kind of doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. So something that I caught there that you said was stewardship. So you used the word stewardship, which Tom, we made that one of our core values for Good Success is stewardship, the actual word. And we talk about that a lot on the podcast. So why is it so important to be a good steward of your business and get your message out to other people?
Well, to me, if you're not going to be a good steward of it, why have it in the first place? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to start something and to put all the work and the effort and the labor of doing it and then to turn around and just simply take it for granted. I mean, obviously, in all of our cases, as we're sitting here right now, there's a much larger eternal purpose at play. And there's something much greater than just, am I going to see the result of it today, tomorrow, next week? But just from a sheer business perspective, I mean, I have a responsibility to the people that work for me. I have a responsibility to people who, again, I've made that promise to steward their trust. And if I'm not willing to steward their trust by providing them with what I told them I could provide them with, then I don't deserve their business. I don't deserve to work with them. And I think that's what something so often we take for granted in business is we have this sense of obligation that you should do it because I said you should, but I have to earn that. And then I have to deserve for you to continue to work with me. So.
Good stuff. I love that. So then, so specifically for your business, Brand Design, what are some things that you offer that is useful, that you found super useful to business owners across the board, even if they're in real estate, if they're in, I know that you have a company that you work with that does, beeswax or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what's been some kind of a across the board useful tool in media for all businesses? Well,
I mean, and this, Josh, you have to start with a brand. If you're not going to start with, a foundation of, laying out the core of, like you said, your core principles. Who are you? What are you about? And then what is the look, the sound, the feel, the language that ties back to that? It's just as unique as somebody's voice. I mean, if somebody talks, you can tell their voice immediately because it's very distinct to them. And so often you find businesses become very, duplicitous almost. There's two sides to their company, and there's all this, you don't know who's talking and what the language is. And so they don't create that cohesiveness to start with. And so then when you start working with them, you can't tell who you're working with. And so the core for everybody, if you're not starting with, here's who we are, here's what we're about, and here's what that looks like, and here's the look and the colors and the feel and the theme that goes with all of those things, that's the foundation everybody has to start at.
Absolutely. So then going along that same track there, how can people utilize, so let's say they do have a brand, how can people utilize that brand to excel above competition that may not even have brands, period?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look for opportunities, and so often people just ignore really, really obvious ones. I mean, you got the shirt on right there. That's a no-brainer. If you own a company and you don't have shirts to go with it, your employees have to be there anyway. Put them in a shirt. People are going to wear shirts every single day. How many times do you see somebody with a shirt for, name the company, and it's just free advertising? That's a no-brainer to me. I always look for, how can I implement my brand into something that maybe people aren't expecting? And so trying to find every single opportunity, usually it goes back to the beginning conversation. They end up picking a logo or a brand that is not applicable. And so when they then go to try to apply it to the side of a truck or a shirt or to something else, it doesn't work. And it's so complex. I mean, I saw somebody sent me one the other day, and it's a tree, and it's like a picture of a tree. How are you going to use that on a T-shirt? I mean, I always ask people this simple question. If everything in your office broke except a one black and white printer, would your logo still look okay? Would your brand still be able to translate? Okay. And so often people look at it and say, well, my cousin in his garage made this for me and I love it and I can't get rid of it. But you can't use it.
Right.
And so if you can't apply it to pretty much every aspect of your business, you're really kind of just wasting your time with it.
Absolutely. So I love that. That's awesome. That's a good analogy.
I'm just thinking about our original branding meetings that we had and the ideas that people had brought up about what it should be or could be with 14 different pieces of the picture into the picture itself.
I was just literally sitting here with Josh knows Tyler, who works for me. He literally leans over to me and shows me a picture of somebody just sent us for a shirt, and it's a cross with a picture of a dove with a Bible with a circle around it and all this type. We're never going to be able to make that, and if we did, we're doing a disservice. So you got to be able to use it. A logo you can't use is worthless.
Absolutely, I love that, and that's super powerful too, because everywhere, I mean, we're very heavily involved with Think Realty, and Tom was just at the Think Realty event in Atlanta last week. And even when I go, Tom, I'm sure that you hear it too. Every time I go and I'm sitting at the booth and running the booth and I'm out networking with people and they see our logo, this G right here, they recognize us immediately. It also is due to the fact that we're on Think Realty's platforms, but we even had a lead come in for our mastermind that saw our logo on the Think Realty platform. He's like, I've seen that before. And then he went on his social account and realized that he was following our Facebook page and all that. So it definitely helps out when you're trying to get your voice out there is the term that you use.
I'm glad you said that, because like, I think marketing, it tells the story. Like marketing has to constantly be communicating with the customers and with the potential customers to tell what your story is. Because at the end of the day, like, trust has become so paramount when it comes to anything in business now, way more than it was, a couple decades ago. Now it's all about trust and association, who you want to be associated with. And you have to hear that story several times sometimes. And media is how we communicate that story to get people to the point where they just want to say, here, take my money. I mean, really, that's what marketing has to be in a business today. It's different than it was 30 years ago, where if you just had a product, people would buy it.
Well, and I look at it like this. I mean, once you've built your brand and you've gone to all that trouble, then every time you spend $1 on marketing, it's just exalting the presence of that brand. If you don't protect it and you don't use it, you're just wasting it. I mean, I know many companies that spend millions and millions of dollars building up a brand. Well, if you've invested that much of your business into it, then you have to use it like it's worth that much. It's that valuable at this point. It carries that much weight. And so you can't overlook that.
Yeah, absolutely. So then along the same lines, we're talking about a voice. One of the ways that brands use one of the primary ways that brands use their voice now is social media. So we're not going to go super deep into running ads, ad campaigns, and doing canvas, like stuff like that. Like, we're not going to go super deep into that. But why is it so important to understand how social media works and how you can leverage it as a brand in order to exalt your voice and use social media as a platform to get your voice out there for the brand?
I'm gonna make every business owner in the world real happy right now, because it's the cheapest way to do it. I mean, just strictly. I mean, you talked about reaching 2.2 billion people for as little money as possible. That's Facebook. There's just no way around it. I mean, you can never get that many people in one place. I don't care how many times they change the algorithm. You're never going to reach that many people, in one place for that little money. It's just not possible. And so to not have a strategy that is considering that, it's like when we were growing up, you'd have the people show up at your door and say, do you want to buy an ad in the yellow pages? If you wanted to be in business, you bought the ad in the yellow pages. And it seems as though today you can go to somebody and say, do you have a social media strategy? And they're like, well, not really. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost the cost of entry. 10 years ago, it was a website. Today, it's social media. You don't have a strategy. You might as well pack it up and go home.
Absolutely. So one thing that I've heard you even talk about before is building relationships through social media, which I've actually started doing. I know Tom started doing a lot on especially Facebook. But for me, I mean, LinkedIn's worked, Facebook has worked, even Twitter has worked. And I personally have been able to build some good relationships where I've been able to bring them into Good Success and say, hey, check this out. Like, see what we're all about. Here's our voice and that kind of thing. We put out a lot of good content. So, and I've heard, again, this is where it derived from, is I heard you talk about how you've built relationships, especially through LinkedIn. So what are some ways that people, like business owners, we talk about network, that can build their network even more on social media?
Yeah, I've found incredible success on Instagram. Direct messaging on Instagram is off the charts right now. Going under a hashtag, finding people that are in that same vein of thought and the things that you're looking for, and just jumping into the direct message with them, sending them a message, offering them a value up front. I had a really effective campaign. I'd go on and say, hey, let me design 10 free slides for your Instagram account. Send me 10 pictures. Let me design 10 free slides for you. All I'm asking you to do is tag me in the comments. And I had 30 people reach back out to me. I made some slides, sent them out, and my Instagram jumped immediately from that, just seeing it shared across the platforms there. A lot of times we forget it's a social network. Like, it's a conversation that you're having with people. If somebody walked up to you and said today, and you had a new shirt on, and they walked up and said, that's a really nice shirt, and you just turned and walked away, that'd be the rudest thing ever. But they can come on your Facebook page or your account and say, man, I love your company. I love what you stand for. And we'll just ignore them. that doesn't work. It's a social network. You have to be able to continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. So one thing that we talk about a lot is the social. So we actually tried to run a breakout session at our mastermind, and a lot of people were engaged in it, but they really, there were some, here and there that they're like, I'm not even on social media, whatever. So you've talked about how social media is important and why people need to be on it, how they can actually network with it. So let's talk about, because I think for business owners, LinkedIn is especially it's a really big platform for business owners, obviously. So what are some ways some strategies that you have done outside of or inside of LinkedIn specifically to create relationships?
Yeah, to start, to me, you have to have the paid membership on LinkedIn. I know as soon as you say paid, everybody's like, I don't want to pay for it. But to pick up those in-mail messages where you can reach out to the top 1% on LinkedIn is a strategy that has to be implemented. You have to just bite the bullet, pay the monthly membership, and then be able to reach out to people that you would never think would ever answer you back. The folks that you think there's no way this person is ever going to want to talk to me, they don't get as many messages as you'd think in LinkedIn, and they reply to them. It's incredible. I had a client who wanted to reach into the coffee industry with a product that he was carrying, and said, can you get me calls with people in the coffee industry? And I'm like, I don't think so. By the end of a week, I had probably 5 of the top 20 coffee companies in the nation direct calls with the CEO of the company, not an assistant, not somebody else, but it was all on the back of LinkedIn messaging. Just going in there, reaching out again, offering a value and saying, can we send you a free product? And then from the free product saying, can we get on a call with you? Just, it's powerful.
Absolutely. That's great. So then kind of switching tracks here, going back to the brand. You talked about why it's important to have a brand. What about brand loyalty? Like people use the term brand loyalty, they use the term brand equity, and those are kind of two different things, but they have, their specific definitions. But why is brand loyalty important when it comes to a business? Like, how can people leverage that loyalty? First of all, how can they build brand loyalty? How can they leverage it after they've built it?
Well, it goes back to the point from before. It's making the promise and then over fulfilling on the promise. That's how you build the brand loyalty. It's, Apple showing you a phone in a presentation and then them handing you the phone and it blowing away what they showed you in the presentation. I mean, it's even more than you'd imagine. So to me, that's brand loyalty. You have to make promises and then fulfill them over and over and over and over again. Once you have it, what do you do with it is whatever you want to do with it. I mean, whatever your desire is to do with it, whatever your end game is. If you're in business, it gives you the opportunity to do one of two things. Either number one, you can expand your audience, or number two, you expand your place in that audience's life. You go to them and say, look, this used to cost $10, but now we have such demand for it. Now it's $20, but you're so loyal to me that you're willing to pay that. You pay anything. I mean, there's people that if you told them today that Starbucks coffee was going to cost you $15 a cup, they'd still pay it because they're so loyal to the brand. And it's just a matter of it's a matter. No, I wouldn't either. But again, that's the love. My number for me for brand loyalty for Starbucks is probably right about where it is. If they raised it anymore, I'd probably go find something else. But that's where I'm at with it. But once they've got that loyalty on me, I'm willing to go there. And so often people look at it and they directly correlate it to getting more people. And that's not always the case. Often the case is getting somebody deeper into your ecosystem, is bringing them in deeper to, okay, now I have this product for you, and now I have this thing for you, and now I have another thing for you. We found this with one of our stores. We had people coming in and, buying a lot of gift items, and we built a really good loyalty for it. And so off of the gift items, we turned around and we said, hey, we bought a truckload of furniture. Do you want to buy furniture now? And we have people who buy furniture from us just because there's a brand loyalty that was created. We made a promise of a shopping experience. They enjoyed it, and now they come back again. A lot of times people don't put that into real estate, and they really should. I mean, if you went to somebody and said, hey, I bought a house from this guy, and then he sent a cleaning lady to my house for 3 months to clean my house afterwards and cultivated that relationship, they'd tell every friend they had about it. They would tell every person that they know, and if they ever bought a house again, you'd be their guy. Just because you overfulfilled the promise, and then you kept pulling them back into your brand. It's so important.
Absolutely. So you have personally worked with real estate investors, is that correct?
I currently have 3 of them as clients that I'm doing different things for, whether it's podcasts or whether it's social media work or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of brand design for real estate people, just a one-time brand design, and then I carry a couple of them on for social media work and so forth.
So that would be my follow-up question, because in real estate investing, there seems to be a lot of business owners out there that tend to name their company something like Max Buys Houses or Lucy Buys Homes, or all that kind of stuff. Why is that a no-no for real estate investors?
It's not a no-no as long as you don't mind the company dying with you. If you're going to be the guy, and if you end up getting in trouble for something and you don't mind the company going under, I just think that's a really selfish way to look at it. I don't think you're really considering the brand as a whole. And so I would really, really consider that as far as what's your end game. If the end game is just simply to increase your personal brand and make everybody know who you are and what you're all about, and you're really not considering your legacy of the people that are working for you or the company that you're building, knock yourself out. But it's not a wise move if you're really thinking of long-term game, if you're looking at building something that's going to last.
Right. So that seems like you would kind of pair that with the voice of the brand or the vision of the brand as well, because for us, Good Success, we have a much bigger vision than just Tom Olson getting his name out there. It's flipping the entire city of Gary, which he has the entire team on board with, and even people outside of Good Success that are on board with us. I mean, people came to the Community Go-Giver event. They were all about it and all that stuff. So the voice of the brand it goes along with I guess the name as well, because Good Success means something to us. So
yeah, and it's something that'll stand the test of time. That's the biggest part is finding something that's going to stand the test of time and can grow beyond and can carry legacy beyond even the person.
Absolutely. Awesome. So we got a couple more questions. We're going to have to wrap this up here in just a second. We got to let Brandon go. And then me and Tom got to jump back on a podcast right after this. So we're going to, we got a couple more questions. So one thing that I didn't prepare you with, Brandon, was some quick fire media tips. So what are 1 to 3 things that you're like, every business needs to be doing this, no matter what you're doing, it's working. Maybe it's something that's, kind of trended to where we're at in nowadays.
Okay. So let's see. Number 1, if you're looking for employees and you're not using Facebook's job postings, really, really look at that stronger. I had somebody who told me that there was nobody hiring in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we had them 125 applications in like a week. Awesome. So that tool is powerful. If you need to hire people, use that right now. Again, we already mentioned it, but Instagram direct messaging. If you're not using the maximum hashtags on Instagram, make sure you're doing that. There's all sorts of tools out there that will generate the hashtags for you. You don't even have to come up with them yourself. But that is how Instagram is growing right now, is by those hashtags. So definitely think about that. If you're on Twitter, keep your content very male-centric, because that's the demo. But if you need men as a customer, get on Twitter. You say people aren't on Twitter. Men are on Twitter. They may not be interacting, but they're certainly watching. So keep that in mind. And then if you're doing email marketing, keep it up. Even if your open rates aren't what you want them to be, it will show fruition as your list grows. So stay on it.
Awesome. Well, so real quick question about that. Why is email marketing so important?
Because you own the ecosystem. If you're on Facebook, they can change the algorithm anytime. If you're on Instagram, they can decide one day that they no longer want people selling houses on Instagram. They cannot do that with an email list. You own the list. So you got to always have that to hedge your bets of, what if the world fell apart tomorrow and there were no social networks? I would still have an email list.
Awesome. So that's why Tom has been pushing us really hard to get some emails and build that email list for Good Success. So we've been working hard on that, which is one of the reasons why we're doing the Active Turnkey book. So
there you go.
That's the secret, guys. We gave that away, but
it's a hook.
Okay.
It's a hook, people.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So
just a couple questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Questions. So my first question is, how did you guys sell 1,300 shirts in 2 hours?
It was on a site that had never sold t-shirts before. The first time my wife applied to it, they turned her down and said, we're not going to sell graphic t-shirts on here. And she came back and kept bugging them with it. And finally they said, all right, we'll put it on here, but we don't think it's going to do very good. And so she put it on once and she sold like 10 shirts, and she put it on again and they sold, literally it went viral. And so they put it on their email list, and it ended up blowing up on us there. So we sold 1,300 the one day. We sold 1,500 of the adult version of it a couple of days later. It went nuts. So we sell anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 shirts a week now.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
They go all over the place. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then my next question is so I've heard this said many times, but people I think are not expressing how. So you said you have to continue the conversation, and social media is a place to be able to continue the conversation. I think where most real estate investors that I know, if they get hung up, this is where they got hung up, because you have no idea. Right. When we did the social media thing at our mastermind and we told everybody how important it was, all I got was, okay, can you do my social media for me? And I was like, I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yes.
Explain to people how to continue that conversation with using social media.
Right. So if you're a company and you're getting off the ground with your Facebook, and you say, I don't have that many people, so I'm not getting many comments or likes or whatever, every single person that if you're just getting started and you don't have any kind of an audience and you're trying to build it, every single person who likes your page should get a message from you or some kind of contact. Every single person who comments on your page should get a comment back. If they come on, if it's spam and you say, well, they're just spamming me. Yeah, but everybody else sees that you commented and that you interacted with that person. No interaction should go without a return reaction to them. I don't know why we feel like it's any less of a conversation than if somebody was standing right in front of you. They took the time to write something. You have to react to it. And there's companies that can help you with that, yes, but at the same time, they don't know you. You know, you've got to be in the trenches with them to say, here's how Tom Olson would respond to this person if they said hello to him, that he would say, great to meet you. How can I be a help to you? I mean, it's got to be a conversation just like we're having right now.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. And I even take it as far, because when we did that breakout session, we even had Eddie Wilson in the room with us talking about how to leverage social media and everything. And I had a couple questions of people like, but what if they leave a negative review or they leave a negative comment and it's not true? My answer to them was respond to it.
You got to respond to them. I always tell people is respond and take them offline. Go on there and say, hey, thank you for your concern. If you'll private message us, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. Yeah. Because what it does is it shows everyone around that you addressed it and you didn't just leave it out there, but it gets the conversation from a public place.
Absolutely.
And I think that's crucial. A lot of times, I mean, a friend of mine, back when social media really started climbing, they just ignored all their Twitter comments. And before you know it, he had a horrible reputation in his area because he just decided he was going to ignore it. You cannot ignore it, especially in real estate. You cannot ignore it because you'll lose your reputation in a second.
Absolutely, man. That's some awesome information. Look, that was awesome. I didn't even prepare you for the quick fire tips, and you were ready to go. That's great stuff. So make sure you guys are taking advantage of that. So did that Instagram tip, is that the Gary Vaynerchuk $1.80 strategy or whatever?
Yeah, I don't use that directly.
Okay.
I'm more into, I go onto their page. I look for user activity. If people are interacting with them, that's who I want to talk to. The top 9 to me is a little diluted.
Yeah.
And since he said that, everybody does that. So you kind of got to work. You got to be a little smarter than that.
Right. Exactly. All right, cool. Well, we're going to have to wrap up here. We got a couple questions that we ask every single one of our interviewees that come on the show here. So we want to hear your thoughts on this. So good success means a lot to us. Obviously it comes from the book of Joshua 1:8, where success is only mentioned in the Bible one time. You're a pastor of a church, so you get it. When you hear the term good success, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means that someday I'm going to stand before my Savior, and he's going to either say nothing or he's going to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I certainly want to hear the latter. Good success is standing before God someday and hearing him say, well done.
That's awesome.
That's all it comes down to for me. Absolutely.
Love that. And then you got to leave our audience with one thing, a quote, piece of advice, a thought, or maybe a resource that you use, something you learned. You got to leave the audience with one thing. What would that be?
One thing is simply just the world is really, really negative right now, it seems like. And if we just have positive things to say and we have a great message to share and we don't share it, then we're part of the problem. We're not part of the solution. So if you have something to say, get on Facebook, get on Instagram, get on Twitter, say something positive and do it regularly. There's no way we're going to combat bad by just simply getting mad about it. We got to combat it with good. So get out there and say something.
Love that. That's awesome. So use social media as a platform. That's what it is. So, and
That's
it's a social network, right? So
that's it.
be social. Awesome. So Brandon, appreciate you being on. I know we pulled a lot of information out of you. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. If somebody wanted to contact you, so website, email, how would they do that?
All right. So Brandon at branddesignco.com, branddesignco.com. TheTalkingShirt.com for The Talking Shirt, TheStoreHouseFrankfurt.com for The Storehouse, MokenaBaptist.org for the church, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn for all of the above. So
awesome.
Just anywhere and everywhere you want to find me.
Cool. Sounds good. And I know that if you Google Brandon McCurdy, he'll come up too. So
something might there. I think there's another guy out there too, but he's like a teenage kid who rides motorcycles. So stay away from him.
So he's not established on the internet sphere.
That's not me.
Awesome. Well, cool. So we're going to have that all linked in the comment section there. So make sure you guys check that out if you're on Facebook. And then if you're listening to the podcast, go to those websites that Brandon just mentioned to check him out and learn more about him. So that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Make sure if you're not already, make sure you are subscribe to the Good Success Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all the podcast platforms. So just go to the platform, search for Good Success, and you will find us there. And then the Active Turnkey book, it's a lead hook. This has been made known. We're going to get your email, but it's free. So absolutely worth it. All you got to do is cover the shipping costs. Tom's going to pay for this out of his pocket. Tom wrote this. Active Turnkey, the best way to buy rentals. All you got to do is go to goodsuccess.com/ATK book to pick that up, and you can get your copy there. And then also the Good Success Mastermind. Make sure you check that out. The next event is November 8, 9, and 10 in Miami, Florida. Goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can fill out the application. You'll talk to either myself or Tom, and we'll chat with you there. So that is going to do it for today's episode. Again, Brandon, thank you for being on. We look forward to having you back soon.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you guys for joining in. And remember to be a conduit and not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Awesome. Thank you guys. We'll catch you in the next one.